Hey, it's Candia Raquel, founder of Centro De Poder. Welcome to the Sensual Sessions, the place to be to explore sensing pleasure with your senses and expressing completely free from inhibition. And today we have a very special guest. This is Paul Wo Lee, and he is a Feldenkrais practitioner. He's a dance artist, an extraordinary person. So welcome, Paul. So happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So tell us.
I'm so happy for the invitation.
Yes, I'm so happy to. Tell us a little bit about your background. When you discovered you wanted to study awareness through the Feldenkrais method.
Well, Feldenkrais saved my life literally when I had a neck injury. Back when I was dancing in the ballet company in the Gothenburg Opera in Sweden. So yeah, in rehearsal one day, doing this pas de deux, a duo dance, I got a really nice role. But then as we were rehearsing, it was just the beginning, and then something felt really wrong. And then it felt more like shoulder, the right side of my chest. I couldn't really, there was like that sort of nerve feeling. So then I was diagnosed with 2 minor hernias in the neck. And I had to take time off. And, it wasn't that sort of throbbing pain, but it was just like, and I remember they have these trams, they had these old trams in Gothenburg. And then I never realized how they would when they stopped, that there would be a jolt. But with the hernia, it was each time that they stopped, that would be so uncomfortable. Really, really didn't feel great. So I did the conventional rehab at with a very good physio there. And a lot of strengthening, core stability. And I already didn't enjoy doing conventional things. And somehow I felt, yes, it was necessary, but I didn't think that was completely the way. It wasn't really solving the issue. But then actually it made this inner voice that I had even more apparent. It really came to the surface how I had always been insecure about myself as a dancer, my abilities, and I basically didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was that I was very good at faking things. That if I was going into a deeper discussion with people, I would say that I'm rather a moving actor rather than a dancer, because for me, technically I didn't really believe that I really knew how to move to be the best. So I felt I had a lot of insecurity and doubts, and that was confirmed when I went to my first Feldenkrais teacher. I had read something about Feldenkrais. I've seen there's a dance teacher who teaches contact improv called Malcom Annie, who I read his bio, and I thought, okay, Feldenkrais, that's really interesting. He was teaching in Helsinki and another school in Finland at that time. And when I went to my first Feldenkrais teacher in Gothenburg, after me talking for more than half an hour, then he said, let's do something. And then as I got onto the Feldenkrais table, then he said, oh, your ribs don't move when you breathe. And that opened up even more of that box of internal chatter, because it wasn't like, oh, really? I remember it so clearly that my first thought was, what ribs? Because, what ribs? And then we all know about the self-image, how the Feldenkrais method is really helping us to refine and improve the self-image. And the ribs for me became, it was something that I was very dubious about, if not conflicted, because people in my ballet teachers would tell me to put my ribs down, and a lot of people have gotten that cue in many different settings. Yeah, ribs down, don't stick your ribs out, be calm in the ribs, don't move so much. And I remember even a ballet teacher in Hong Kong, she went to the ballet school in Princess Grace Academy, I believe, in Monaco. And she said, yeah, well, when we were there, we even had a teacher teaching us how to breathe so that we wouldn't move our ribs so much, so it doesn't look like we're heaving, for better or for worse. But somehow I don't blame the teachers. Now I'm taking responsibility and saying that I was trying to be too good. So all these, I would just lock my rib cage up. And so another shout out to Thomas Kampe, a Feldenkrais teacher in the UK. Yeah. So I think a lot of us know him. So I looked him up and I flew to London to see him because I wanted to ask him if I would be ready for a Feldenkrais training. And I remember doing a workshop and just lying on your back and having your arms by your side, and then just reaching or lengthening one arm out to the side, and then seeing, what was involved. And I remember being stuck. And it was this moment of, it was surprise, it was frustration, so many different emotions, because I was like, oh my goodness, after so many years of dancing, I have no idea how to move my arm, how to reach it. And then he asked, do your ribs have something to do with it? Could your head roll? Can your neck move? And I was like, wow. This is, how locked up was I in, and so unknowing of what my rib cage can do, how that relates to the mobility of the spine. And he said, I think you're asking the right questions. And then that's how I jumped into a Feldenkrais training. Because at that point, I was also like, I think Feldenkrais really saved my life, because I was feeling dance as a threat. And I was so depressed. Think, you have been training most of your life to do one thing, and that thing is slowly, and sometimes not so slowly, hurting you. But that's the only thing that So of course it had passed my mind to try and go for a Pilates certification, to teach yoga, but nothing really resonated with me. And because I'm kind of greedy, I want that very comprehensive that's it, the thing, the best,
la crème de la crème.
And wow, I just did not know how amazing the method was. And we already had an amazing chat before we started recording, and I wanted to say that Feldenkrais may not have all the answers, and I think the answer is in having the tools to find the answers for yourself and give you a lot of orientation, and that leads to inspiration. It was so inspirational for me in the Feldenkrais training, and so often I would just be overcome by the appreciation, the fascination of what we are and what we are capable of. And in the small movements, when you can appreciate things, then it is it's so deeply moving and powerful and beautiful. So and then I like to tell people when I first teach them Feldenkrais that what we're about to do is something highly artistic. No matter if you have back pain, you have shoulder pain, you know, you feel stuck, something, any reason why you come to Feldenkrais, but it's something very artistic. And, you know, this is sensual sessions, right?
Yeah.
So it is very sensual, because if you can't have that refined taste of what you're doing, how are you going to have a refined reception and appreciation for the things around you? So yeah, that's how I got into Feldenkrais, and it has become a force for, you know, my artistic endeavors, whether it's in dance, on stage, or just working with people. Yeah, I think what we do is artistic.
Yeah, it is. This appreciation of the nuances on the experience of the self, it's definitely artistic, and it's singular to everyone, and you cannot put the experience of yourself in the hands of other, being a partner, a dance teacher, or a boss. That can only be in your hands. And this, what you describe, process of self-knowledge, is no one's responsibility but oneself. And it's surprising to listen to your testimony of how being a ballet professional dancer that has been trained like for your whole life, were also trained to inhibit parts of yourself, like not knowing the ribs. I also come from ballet and from Graham technique, and I believe no one have escaped from that tremendously harmful cue of closing the ribs, and it's perpetuated generation after generation and radiated to yoga and Pilates and everywhere. And only few people have examined like, well, what happens if you don't breathe? Like, just like that. Well, if you don't breathe, say for 1 minute, maybe you will be there the next minute. But if you don't breathe like for 5 minutes, for sure you're not gonna be here but for the next hour. Like breathing is the first and the last act of life. And it's tremendous to deal with a physical constraint externally imposed that limits the quality of our breathing. And as we know, we have our skeletons here. We are super anatomy nerds, but for the sensualists that are workaholic and are nerds in law and their own nerdiness, I just want to tell you that the part of the lungs where you can breathe the most is the lower lungs. So you really need to flare and open the lower ribs, like, to be healthy. So our experience of being like trained to not move the ribs in ballet can also translate to what we in society live of trying to fit into a certain mold of external validation that threatens, if not your life, it do threatens your optimal being and living. And it's a perpetuated, unexamined mindset of detaching the awareness of yourself and placing the authority of yourself on another person, as if the other person or anyone could know more about you than what you can know. So it's very important, I feel, that we do what Paul did, like take back the agency on yourself and look for people that can really lead you to know more about your body and to experience how you move your rib cage, reaching your arms and become more aware of of the nuances and wonders that you sensually are. And speaking of which,
Well, you know,
yeah, tell us.
mhm. Sorry for cutting you off, but I think there's also so much that you have mentioned that really points to the deeper meaning of movement, the deeper importance of movement. And you mentioned, you know, having your own authority, not giving it to others. But I think my definition of sensuality, or my feeling of sensuality, really comes from watching the Chinese women around me growing up, where I would say sensuality is also very synonymous with flexibility.
Yes.
And it's smile first, and then accept, and then act. Or to, because as you know, I think Feldenkrais has also made me see how everything is also okay. That what I remember teaching at the Royal Swedish Ballet School, and then I taught them an awareness through movement lesson. And then one of the teachers, she decided to just observe. And then after we did the whole lesson, people stood up, shared a bit. She said, "It is so fascinating how you teach by asking questions, asking people to question." And I remember thinking, wow, I am so deep down in this Feldenkrais world that that was just second nature to me. That was like, I didn't even think that it was something remarkable, worth noting. But yeah. And so I think this thing, so Feldenkrais really taught me to see that even what we label as bad habits must have helped us somehow in, I think a lot of times it's in our expression, to be safe in the world, you know, to rigidify in, or it you know, everyone is so much about like releasing. And I love how, you know, I really got this from several Feldenkrais trainers, and specifically Jeremy Kraus. He's like, well, you know, and I think Jeff Holler also says that a lot, like to just relax and release. That's like, you can't really get anywhere, right? It is. And I think that, so sensuality is also to have elasticity, to say yes and yes. So I can hold my ribs down, because but then for me, it has become the understanding to go into the appreciation of, oh, if I close the ribs, then my chin can come forward. I can do the pecking movement, which is one of the grand discoveries, I think, of from Feldenkrais, that I don't think it is addressed so specifically in other methods. You know, how it's not always about the long spine. You know, that you need to be able to jut your chin forward, you know, as if you're kissing someone. Or in Graham, I think it's so much about that. Yeah. So so everything you were saying, I was also like, yes, it's true, but the opposite also seems to be true. That now I'm also appreciating the function of whatever, right? So to breathe, yes, from the ribs, yeah. But then also I'm appreciating how when you do a lot of pelvic floor work, or it's not a lot, sorry, but just to have an awareness of your pelvic floor gives you that whole, it feels like you go into the center of the earth sometimes, right?
Yes.
You have that much more to go down. And then I realized, oh, I have been actually straining my ribs so much to get air in, but actually it can be something very quiet that happens below that also changes my whole state of emotions and stuff. So back to sensuality, I think what I really see is this flexibility to smile first and always give a little bit of a spiral, not to be just face on with your stance, but just to have a little smile, have a little chuckle inside, be like, okay, that's what you believe. Let's see if the opposite is also true. And so in having that, I feel that you're always in a place of power.
Yes.
And in the martial arts, I really see it in literal physical terms, where in a lot of the martial arts, it's about spiraling, because you sort of always, you're ready to escape or to enter and attack. And so I feel with that philosophy, which, it's also through doing Feldenkrais that I go back to honor and become more thankful for my Chinese culture in having this more spirally, wavy kind of approach, because I think that is ultimately the most powerful, to be like water.
To be like water. Yes, sensuality has to do with flexibility and freedom, as you say. So it's an ability to dance between apparent contradictory opposites that can actually be polarity, because framed like this, closing the ribs and not moving them requires a very specific organization of the body, of the core, that you can even enjoy. Like, it can be pleasurable to wear a really tight corset, like Victorian corset, and being all tight in the center and having a very narrow space to breathe. It forces your body to organize in a certain way. And if you add to that configuration high heels, then something has to happen in the hips very visibly to compensate for the narrow stability base. And the neck has to behave in a certain way. And that leads to a full organization to the body, which can be pleasurable. And it's important that it's part of a deliberate doing, like you mentioned, like smile first, then accept, and then act. Like really checking in yourself if you're for it, and also having other alternatives, as being outside of the corset and mobilizing your ribs and having that alternative, so you have the opportunity to choose. And that means like being the effector of your experience and the expression of your experience, that is sensuality, and not only being like the fetishist object of the choreographer. Here in Mexico, the name of the career was bailarín ejecutante. So it's like an executive dancer. Like very executive, like
executing.
Executing, like if you're like in a Fortune 500 company, and you better want the CEO to be executive of the interests of the board members that are making the money, no? So you executive. So it is good if you're aligned in that organization of the choreographer, etc. But what if also you add from your experience into the full dance that is going on, being it a real dance or being it an organizational movement in your work or in your family meeting, that can get very interesting those Christmas. So it's sensuality can be a more participative way to being forth in the world.
It's really fun talking to you, because as you're speaking, I feel that there is a certain structure that keeps inspiring me to see these different images. So I'm gonna kind of fuse two things together.
Yes.
So I love how you're called Centro De Poder, because sensuality is so much about having power, but then it doesn't necessarily come in the form of hardness, of being, a train just like running at full speed and charging into things. But there is a very almost scary silence that can be power. It is a softness. It is that is flexible, it's adaptable, ready to strike, but always, energy consuming. And it's also sort of very regenerative. So as you were talking about the, how you can derive pleasure in being confined in a corset, and then adding that high heels. And this is my strategy. The smile already helps me slip and slide a bit away from that situation. And I can see my mom and the legions of women in that I don't know, they don't even have to be Chinese, but it's like I can see my mom just sort of like, okay, you put me into this position, I'm allowing you to, and I'm going to deal with it brilliantly. I'm not going to let you make me suffer. I'm going to turn this into pleasure. And I think that's also very much the judo spirit and flexibility that Feldenkrais. I know, like, as we're talking about it, can't you just feel these waves, right? Because you're taking but I just feel it's so empowering, because when you know how to move better, you can transform yourself to at least make the situation better. The situation might not be great, but it will be better. And then before you hit the record button, you were telling me about your amazing Pilates past, your Pilates history. And then behind you, you have is it called the tower?
It is called the kinky apparatus. No, kidding. It's the Cadillac.
Okay. So then you were saying how Joseph Pilates, set up this frame so that people can do things and then still feel free. And then I was like, oh, immediately, I think this is a theme that comes from, Feldenkrais with learning through constraints, building flexibility through constraints. But then it's also my theme whenever I am in the studio working with dancers. It's like, how do we find the freedom from limitations? And I was just like, I can just see like these Feldenkrais lessons being done, or like having very mindful movements in this Pilates structure, and just saying like, yes, this frame, but look how much I can find of myself just existing in this. And thank goodness there's a frame as well. It's like the frame is not a bad thing. The frame is giving me a shape to come back to go away from, to be me, to be it, to be together, then you can spiral off. So I was just thinking again how it's so necessary to see sensuality as being this animal staying lubricated in many different situations. It gets sexual, but it's sensual. It is life force. So I'm totally about that. And going even a bit further, when you're saying how so many people, that we landed on how often we hear the cue of putting your ribs down, holding your ribs. I think I'm excited to teach ballet in my way, is because it's so much about breaking the patterns of anxiety that have existed for so long. Because the teachers I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think everyone wants to help.
Yes.
And like sometimes a concerned parent, the teacher's like, I just need to give them something that they can hold on to, that is easy, that will help them in many situations. Hold your ribs.
Yeah.
Hold your ribs.
Yes.
And then and as you said, it was not deeply examined. So then it feels like it's a prison.
Yes.
And so I think Feldenkrais has again given me this way of saying, okay, let me take the responsibility to look deeper into this. What's good about holding the ribs, and what is also good about letting the ribs move.
Yes.
So I think when I'm teaching, and I'm really happy, I'll be teaching in Latvia. No, sorry, I'm going to be teaching in Lithuania. In Vilnius in August. They've asked me to teach contemporary ballet, they call it. And the whole word contemporary also is something to unpack. But I'm like, what values are you coming into this ballet class with? Because my exercises, my choreography, I don't think is creme de la creme, but your approach to the propositions can be so stellar and just elite, of a very elite artistic and human level. And that's what makes a contemporary dance, right? And it's not about breaking rules and being a rebel, but it's saying what is relevant to me. How can I approach this tendu, this balance? Do you see balance as something that needs to stay forever? Or is it something that is in passing? It is something like a good hors d'oeuvre, right? It's something that you get a taste of and then it's gone. And then you keep on giving that. So I think that, again,
yes,
how like this appreciating the knowledge of yourself to move better, it is helping to clear away a lot of those patterns from society, from our cultures, that for better for worse have tried to help us, but sometimes they get perpetuated and they just become walls, that
constrictions.
Us, constrictions.
Just like you said, the appreciation of yourself will give you the discernment to choose and have authority on yourself and responsibility for yourself, and the possibility of reframing the limitations and even the impositions where you were put into something that you can accept, and then do something with them. Because we now that we are very free and rebel and nerdy and curious, we want to go outside the box, break the box, destroy the box. But the box in the first place gave us safety, gave us contention. It's like, just imagine if we wouldn't have skin, like the intestines would be like hanging around everywhere. So the box, the limitations, the corset, the rules, even judgments were some things where you could hold on, or at least have as reference as you navigated reality and life. But once you know what they are, or once you know how are you operating within certain constraints imposed or accepted, you can do things about that, and you can use them as support. And you can choose, like, okay, in this moment I need this restriction, and also I am in the church. I am not gonna go all octopus walking down on a ceremony of the wedding of someone else, no? Like, it's the wedding of the other person, not my scenic moment. And also, like, when it's your scenic moment, like everyone's watching your dance, like that's your moment to go do your thing and have that discernment, but comes exactly from I remember Moses telling that one always need to have three options, like to go from your home to
I like that a lot.
the airport. Like, what if there's a
Mhm.
march and you cannot go through the quickest way? Well, you should like have a longer way, and if that is close, maybe the walking way or the bicycle way, or go to another country and and come from this
Yeah.
side. Because if you have only two options, then you're dealing with an ultimatum, like love me or leave
Mhm.
me or let me be lonely. Like, I don't know if it was
Mm.
Ella Fitzgerald that sang, but well, yeah, we
Oh.
want options, because flexibility is about options, but also we need
Mm.
the contention, because otherwise how would, if you're running a marathon, it can be a hard context to become aware of the subtle movement
Mm.
between your ribs, no?
Mhm.
So constraints also open way for the refinement in the nuances. And it made me think of the Chinese woman you grew with. Would you tell us a little
Mm.
bit more about how was their movement?
Mm, I think it's a whole, it plays out in a beautiful video in my mind. If I were to make a video collage one day, I think it would be quite amazing. But it's snippets from, my mom. I see my aunts playing mahjong, and a lot of it comes from also seeing the watching the women in kung fu movies. In also, the fairies in the Chinese fairies, they're always like floating on clouds, and the way that they move, it's feet first, pelvis, and then the head sort of trails. So there's something very seaweedy, and it's quite flirtatious. And it was funny to note that, having lived abroad for so many years, and then revisiting some of these films, and these snippets of Chinese dancers, and I'm like, wow, that is overtly flirtatious. And
Overtly.
for a society that is, yeah, but for a society that is known to the world as being very conservative, I was like, this is very daring, And so it's the leaning of the head a lot. And so I just love the crisscrossing curves all the time. And it's very Tyra Banks. I always have to bring her in there, because I feel it's so scientific what she said. In a photo, you need to just have the angles dance, so you have to give these opposing angles, and then you'll get something very visually effective. And that was also something I worked with my director and choreographer in Bremen in Germany. He calls it like having dimension, being graphic in space. So I think that has also validated and helped my work as a Feldenkrais teacher, as well as a facilitator in general, because like if we could see ourselves as artistic beings, which means that we have options. And when we have options, not only do we have freedom to play.
Yes.
Then that is so central. I mean, you said how to dance with limitations or something before, and the dance in that context is very powerful, I think, for every day. That I have to admit, I'm not always the most secure person. I might come across that way, but if I have fun in the moment like this, and I can just play with the shoulders, the opposing head, neck, then you have something, you know, you have another layer that you're buzzing at even while you're having this conversation. And it's just, I don't know, it's just joy. It's fun.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's, you know, when we see ourselves as artistic beings, then we would want those options. And sensuality is not something you aim for. You just become it.
Yes.
So I notice that a lot in what I've seen in Chinese women. And I find that it is so very intuitively, I've always been drawn to that female energy, if you can call it, since I was young, because I think I have always been captured by strength. And I said that way of being more wavy, of being, you know, more yielding is actually the stronger individual. That the person, you know, the one who is symmetrical in front of you like this, I just don't buy it. And I don't want to be on that team. So, yeah.
Yes, sensuality talks about strength, a natural strength that comes from taking the space, allowing ourselves to take the space for this playfulness and this expressive, authentic expression that is not pre-rehearsed, but rather responding to the edge of the now, that is the present, that is responsive. And therefore, it's very strong because it's attuned to what's going on, to maybe to the precise note of the melody if you're dancing, or maybe to the precise unexpected change in your surroundings if you're a hunter. And this is a way that we know, because it's in our body, it's in our nature. And also, like, having this inner support and place to hold on, that is how we organized in the gravity field. Because the Pilates apparatus is wonderful because it makes a frame of support that temporarily substitutes the support that you should have within yourself while you connect to it. And again, your trailer with the snippets of elegant Chinese women, it's also playing in my mind already, and I feel that specialists looking at us, listening at us, it also already is, because it's like not an apparent strength, not a faked strength or a pretense, but rather it's the real deal. And yeah,
it's like it's embodied.
It's embodied. Yeah, it's in your flesh. And I want to counter-connect this with the insecurity that we were talking about in the beginning, because I don't know if there's a way to not become insecure after being taught by teachers that haven't examined their teachings and having to comply. And this must happen also in, like, between the lawyers or the football players or whatever. Like, this is a society, people-pleasing society that we live, that is rooted on insecurity. And I get a feeling that the insecurity is rooted on precisely on the other person, that actually, if you are really conscious about the other people are really worried with their problems and they are not so concerned about you. So it's like an illusion of yeah, or of having the external authority operating. But once you come into the sense of yourself and your movement and your grounding and feel supported by your own means, then the world is yours. Then comes this confidence, but not like, oh yeah, I'm confident, I'm number one. No, it's it's rather an animal confidence, a life force confidence that can go to the sensual and to the sexual, but also can go into the enjoying a flower, because such is life and life force and its movement.
So, you know, what I really like about us being Feldenkrais teachers is that those beautiful experiences are very attainable through very concrete, practical means. And, you know, the insecurity of people, and even when I feel insecure, I start looking at how I'm moving or not moving. And then I'm like, but it's something very physical. If I never allow my hip joints to really come over my feet, and I don't really become erect, and meaning like as tall as I can be, then of course I always feel a little bit like I'm about to retreat, and that doesn't give me that sensation of security, you know, stuff like that. I like how with Feldenkrais lessons, it's really about, can you move in this way? Can you move your pelvis in these different ways? Can you then like move one shoulder forward, one shoulder back? So you're really going through the options, and it's an education that in the end, it just your nervous system, I think, craves better organization most of the time when it sees fit. And then, you know, you just have more knowledge to embody this confidence. So so I kind of like being this problem solver. So what happened was, I was watching RuPaul's Drag Race very early on in the day.
Spectacular.
Do you know that show?
Yeah, of course.
So
voting all
this
over.
Drag queen. And then you would hear a lot of them talk about their insecurities. And then I remember seeing a few, and I said, well, of course you feel insecure, because you don't know how to move in a stable way. And then it's great that they find a way of being quirky, you know, and create that as their use that as their strength. But then I was like, oh, I wish one day I could go to RuPaul's Drag Race and be the Feldenkrais teacher, give them a few of these awareness through movement lessons, and then say, now go into your heels, get into your makeup, and see how you will do things differently, and you will feel different. So I think it's, you know, it's these concrete tools that we can give that will lead them to identify and then inhabit some of their blind spots, to shine light into the blind spot and say, hey, look, you actually have more options, more possibilities. Now play, now be even more fabulous. So
now play, now be even more fabulous. I like a lot this embracing being an artistic being, and not only like when one is dancing or making a molding clay thingy or something that you think it's art, but it depends on
this is your clay to mold. You are the clay.
But like, we are artistic on our creative expression moment by moment. That can be the way your grandmother lift the cup of tea and do this jutting movement, organized from the chin to the rib cage, and the way she lets the tea slips inside her throat, and her experience, like that is an art on its way of doing. And that takes me to to the openness of the curiosity for the unknown that is at every sip in your cup of tea, at every breath you take. And that curiosity and openness is something that you can learn when you have a good teacher like Paul that teaches, or Thomas
you.
Kampe and Thomas, thank you, and Thomas Kampe that teaches through questions, because in that way you also learn to talk yourself through questions rather than through aggressive commands and impositions like in ballet, like close your ribs. That's an order, and that's an order I received from Pilates teachers also. And that's a radical different approach to give a straight command. Then there's no space for decision. You have not three choice, not two, not one. And whereas if you ask yourself like, okay, how am I feeling? How does the tea taste? Is it good for me? How am I moving? Am I feeling balanced? Or am I enjoying the unbalanced? How does this expression of me feels to me? Which is very different. It's in the first place, it's a respectful way of teaching. It's a respectful way of learning. And it's a respectful and honoring way of teaching yourself to learn from reality as it unfolds moment by moment. And yeah, it's wonderful. This is something that you for sure can learn in the Feldenkrais method with Paul. I am a Bonds for Life, which is applied Feldenkrais teacher. Yeah, the Huti Alon's style, but still it comes from Feldenkrais, and it's something that I 100% recommend. So Paul, would you share with us a little process, movement, exercise, poem, thingy of 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes so we can get like a sensual or awareness, pleasurable taste of what we have just talked about?
Well, okay, let's see. I think since we spoke about the ribs, I'll share one of my go-to sort of things. So how do you feel sensual? And I think one of the ways, because I like to think that there are many, is that you don't have your head perfectly straight, right? So what can really help is to just have a little tilt in your head. So then you can see that you can tilt the head a bit to the right and a little bit to the left. And yeah, you want to go at a speed where you can kind of taste the movement, and it's something that feels nice. Yeah. And then now, when you do this, are you just thinking about bending in the neck, or do your shoulders, does one come up, one go down? Do you do any bending in your ribs, your chest? So you would take your hand, you can put it on the top of your head, or you can wrap it to the opposite temple. So this is the right hand holding the left temple, and you just help your head bend a bit more to the right, and then you come back. And then so you can see that when you keep your hand attached to the head and you want to bend lower, you start thinking about you feel the right elbow. And how would you get the right elbow just a bit lower? And then you'll see that you have to start bending in your chest. And to just expedite the process, you can actually take your left hand and hold the ribs on the right side of your chest, and you just move the ribs on the right towards the left. So you actually help your chest bend, and then you'll feel that your right elbow can go a bit lower, your head can bend a bit lower. Yeah. So I think you're finding this dragon or snake of your spine actually being able to bend more globally, right? And then the left hand is just reminding, giving you a feeling of the right ribs, that they can close a bit. And then you sort of let the left side of your chest protrude to the left. And so the appreciation comes from all the different details. And this is easy to see that there's sort of consequence of bending the head to the right, the left shoulder would come a bit higher, the right shoulder down. And when you start appreciating that, you're like, oh, you're telling your brain, look at that, sense that, feel that, enjoy that. And then you might be able to go a bit further. So then you just take your hand away and just notice how you are sitting and where do you want to be, like where. And I call this the effect after doing Feldenkrais, the cycle of self-inspiration. You're like, now what do you want to do? Like, I just kind of want to do this. Does your head want to turn to the right? Is it turning to the left easier? How is your breathing? Right. And then, yeah, so you could just walk up, stand up and then walk away and then have this asymmetry, you know, going somewhere. Maybe you feel it's just easier to bend. Well, if we go back to the beginning, if you bend your head to the right and then to the left and see if it's just easier towards the side that we were bending to. Or sometimes what happens is that it's easier to go in the opposite direction. So we can do the other side. Have the left hand holding the right temple, and then you start very gently bending the head to the left. So I had a bit of a stutter there because I was thinking how to relate to sensuality. And, you know, the idea of self-love comes when you would think, how would you treat a lover or someone you love? You know, that maybe you're not bending your own head, but the head of someone you really like. And so how can you find that gentleness, that subtle sensitivity? You can help with the right hand holding the left ribs, encouraging the left ribs to move to the right. Feel the right shoulder that comes up. And so you're not just forcing the neck, you're not like commanding, but you're like, how can I help out by getting more people, more parts moving? So then let's do something a bit different here. So the next time you bend your head to the left, just stay there. And can you lift your left sitting bone, the left side of your pelvis, a little bit off the chair? It doesn't have to be a bit. And then you see that when you lift the left sitting bone, your head bends a bit more, right? And then you just come back up with the head and you place the left sitting bone down again. And then just try to combine the left sitting bone coming up with the head bending to the left. And allow the right side of your chest to elongate, to even bulge out to the right. The left ribs close more. So you're doing this all softly. So you're asking, oh, can more joints along your spine be involved with this bending? And then just one more time. To the left, lift that left sitting bone. To the degree that it's helpful to find this C curve in your spine. And then let that go. And notice how you feel after doing that. Yeah. And if you were to think that there is this moving water in you, is it easier to sort of stir or just yield to the waves of the water inside the volume of your torso, your chest, and can you actually move with your imagination, your fantasy, your desire, your pleasure? So that's so maybe just short, if you just put both hands on the top of your head, you can interlace the fingers or just place them one on top of the other. I like interlacing the fingers. And can you lift one sitting bone? So let's lift the right one since we didn't do that. And see how is it to lift the right sitting bone off the chair. And do you notice that there's a slight tilt of the elbow? So which elbow is moving downwards or would be easier to move down in the direction of the floor? Yeah. So then you can play with that. You can either just keep doing the sitting bone, lifting the right one, and then feeling the effects on the right elbow that would probably go down, or you can actually help the right elbow go down even more as you lift the right sitting bone. And then you'll see that these movements go together and you're involving the ribs, which means the right side of your rib cage would get shorter. The ribs would come more together, and then the ribs on the left side get a chance to open and fan out. And then you can alternate now, come back to the center and start lifting the left sitting bone and see how does this tilt the elbows. So now perhaps the left elbow, it feels this open gateway to droop down towards the floor so your head bends to the left. And you can pay attention to many things, your left eye, your right ear, where are they in space, and you're lifting the left sitting bone. Now you just alternate. And I think the key is to sort of be in this very smooth space where you transition easily. Yeah. So you have that choice of taking it from the sitting bones, and because you lift one sitting bone, one elbow drips down, one elbow floats up, or you can do this from one elbow, you're bringing it down, and the other one you bring it up, and then you just help with your sitting bone to fulfill that. Yeah. And isn't it that there's just so much of ourselves actually to taste, to savor, that you can be here for quite a long time.
Yes.
And you're like, wow.
Wow.
This is me, this is me, this is me. Yes. And imagine with that attitude, just how you treat other people.
Yeah. Appreciation for oneself.
So when you're ready, just let that go. And how do you feel sitting here? Where do you want to go with this?
Yeah.
So it's always nice to just stand up, walk, because that's really one of the main things that we do in life. Or move. I always think that there should be an event where you do Feldenkrais and you go into a club and you dance it out to your favorite music.
Yes.
Yeah. So just see where you can carry your head. How many lines are you expressing through the axis, from the axis of your face, your head, and how your shoulders, ribs, pelvis, sitting bones, all are dancing. Yeah.
Yeah. Loving it. Such a deliciousness, sensual deliciousness of movement. It's amazing how pleasurable is to exist. Like when you really
Mamma mia.
Yeah, like let's just be like Persian cats, very busy with the bliss of existence. we have all these.
I really feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have all these wondrous experience, unique and fleeting experience of being alive. And we did like what, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of your movement, Paul, and that was enough, like to bring us back to this pleasure, to this sensing that is being. So let's not waste more time suffering without a reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's come forth to life with our full sensing and with the best of life and the best of ourselves. Yes.
Like another, you just, thank you for putting all that into words. It's just really, really invigorating to hear, because I just feel that another way to describe Feldenkrais practitioners, it's like we're sort of food bloggers, and we're not writing about the next best restaurant in the city, in the world. It's like we have this this enthusiasm to tell people, oh my gosh, it tastes amazing, you know, it's you. Did you know that you taste so delicious and wonderful? I want to help you taste that. And
Yes.
and that's what I got, you know.
Yeah, you're like
so.
you're the best dish in the full galaxy, and don't disregard it. Like don't throw it to the pigs. This is the most. This is the outcome of an uninterrupted line of life since the beginning of life itself. Like your body, your flesh is the outcome of all the won battles of your ancestors. That's who and what you are, despite what your boss, neighbor, and everyone says. Like, really acknowledge this.
Yeah.
It's a matter of being realistic, to say the truth. Yes, Paul.
For sure.
This has been an exquisite, essential session. Really appreciate it. Tell us, how can we know more about your work, and where can we find you in the interwebs?
Yeah, so I have a website, www.paulsfeldenkraisprojects.com. So it's plural, Paul's Feldenkrais Projects. Thinking about changing it soon, but anyways, for now. And then on Instagram, I am at Paul_moves. So if you type that in, I think you'll see
Paul moves
there.
So go.
Yeah, just get in touch, because sometimes I don't know what to do, how to channel all this enthusiasm. So I'm open for some propositions and just to hear from people. So yeah.
So go find Paul at Paul_moves in Instagram, and his website that I'll link here below. Learn from him. Check on his material. He's amazing, as you have known here. Thank you so much, Paul. It's been a great pleasure, really.
And thank you for creating this space. Really, I think it's amazing what you do. And wow, we also need people like you to just support us all and linking us. So thank you. Really appreciate your work too.
Thank you so much. And yes, Sensualist, take the time to sense your fire, like with this exercise, so you can share the flame. Like, we are sharing with you what have been shared to us. So keep the fire, the light shining bright, and enjoy what you are, who you are, and come forth to the world confidently. Give your best, your fire creatively. Completely free. So yes, if you haven't already subscribed to the Sensual sessions, like go right now to centrodepoder.com and sign up to get more like these episodes. They're delivered weekly on your inbox. And until then, see you. Take care.